going? Ready for another installment of my video diary here. So I've been at Kopan now for about a week, and I'm just going to talk quietly because there are people around, and I'm in a meditation garden here. So yeah, this has been great. This has been a really cool, interesting experience. So we're having a break now between courses. Did a 6-day how to meditate class, which probably should have been called Introduction to Buddhist Meditation Techniques, because I mean there was some instruction. Well, I guess there was a lot of instruction, but it was across a whole variety of different meditation techniques, some of which were quite subtle. And it was very dense. There's a lot of information in that class. But anyway, where should I start? The monastery itself. We're on the outskirts of Kathmandu, nestled up in the hills. I can see 2 or 3 other monasteries from where we are. Like on one side of the hill, have views right across Kathmandu, and across the tops of the hills you can see a few other monasteries. And then on the other side, behind me, is sort of like rural land. You can see farms and crops, but also some housing and stuff. So the views are amazing, despite the smog or fog or combination of the two. It's usually very hazy here, but it's beautiful. So the gardens here are nicely manicured and well looked after. The accommodations is it's very simple, but it's comfortable, and we get fed 3 times a day, and the food is good. It's delicious. I mean, it's vegetarian. It's getting a little samey now after a week. It's the same meals kind of coming up over and over, but it's all good. A lot of carbs though, I have to say, like white rice, white bread, potatoes, pretty much every meal. So I've been trying not to kind of carb out, but it's cold here too, so sometimes it's nice. Yeah, so this monastery is open to Westerners, so you could even just turn up in a taxi and come and visit as a tourist. There's a cafe, there's a little store, and they hold classes for Westerners. So there are 3 classes in January. I didn't know about them until I got here, so I missed the first one, but I was here for the second one, and I'm staying for the third one. So the first one was mindfulness, the second one was how to meditate, and this one that's about to start is called dealing with disturbing emotions. So that should be pretty interesting. There were about 60 students in the class. Pretty much primarily all Westerners. I mean, there were a couple of Middle Eastern people, some Russians, a couple of Indians, but the rest was all like a lot of us Australians, Americans, Canadians, Europeans, a lot of Danish for some reason, and the teacher was Australian. That was unexpected. This little Australian nun who was just amazing, but the irony was not lost on me to come all the way to Kathmandu to be taught by an Australian. But yeah, she was wonderful, and she's teaching the next class as well, so I'm very happy about that. Yeah, so there was a lot of instruction. We did mindfulness meditations, single-pointed concentration meditations, analytical meditations, resting in awareness meditations, guided visualization meditations, purification meditations. I'm sure the list goes on. They're the main ones that I can remember. So yeah, I've filled a whole notebook with these little subtle instructions on what to do if you're struggling from drowsiness, what to do if you're struggling because of an overactive mind. But a lot of the teachings, not a lot, but a significant portion of the teachings are quite metaphysical, I suppose, supernatural, having you doing a lot of deity visualizing, white light entering the heart, and breathing out snakes and scorpions and black smoke and that sort of stuff, which it doesn't really appeal to me so much, but I'm really just doing my best. I've got a shaky hand, I need to steady up. Just doing my best to stay as open as possible. And that's the introduction book that they gave when I came here. It's just a little free tiny book, but it was actually really good and talked a lot about kind of contradictions within the Buddhist teachings, and it really comes down to where the student is at. So the lesson for the student, I'm gonna take my glasses off. There we go. What they'll say to one student, it depends on where he or she is at, right? So you may tell one student something because he's at a certain level, but then you may tell another student something that seems contradictory because they're kind of at a different level and they're ready to hear something in a different way or what have you. So that was good information to me, in as much that, okay, if I'm not vibing with what I'm being told, I'm just going to put it to one side and just stick with the stuff that I am vibing with, stuff that seems to be working for me. And then the more you remain open, the more you meditate, the more you kind of learn, then at some point down the road you can come back to these things and find a way to integrate them into the practice. So that's been really good for me. And what's been really funny is that, because these Westerners, and the age range is mostly, I'd say, like 20s and 30s. Like, I'm one of the older guys here. So there's just quite a lot of skepticism from these students. A lot of them really struggled with the lessons on karma, the meditations on karma, the meditations on rebirth and reincarnation and stuff. Well, there was a lot of resistance from the students, and that was actually really heartening to me, because in LA I always felt like I was the skeptic. I was the one on the outside that was like, hang on a second, can we not think about this critically? Where's the evidence? Where's the proof? And it's kind of funny that here I'm the guy that's saying, hey, maybe we should just be keeping an open mind, guys, So yeah, they gave the teacher a bit of a hard time on a couple of occasions, but she handled it pretty well. So yeah, some of the metaphysical and supernatural stuff is, it's a lot to kind of take on board, but it kind of depends on the teacher, So if the teacher is fully immersed in that aspect of Buddhism, then that's what she's going to teach. You may find another teacher that isn't really so keen on that and dealing more with the psychological and philosophical aspects, and so they might be like, oh, don't worry about that, it's too much, just move on. But our teacher was fully immersed in all aspects. So I had a little run-in with her in front of the class, which was interesting, because she said she was talking about karma and how we karma. She talks about it in terms of planting seeds. So we plant a karma seed, or an imprint, she calls it, and then those seeds will ripen at some point when the conditions are right. So it may happen within this lifetime, or we may carry them into the next lifetime, and then the conditions are right, and so the karma seed ripens. So if we're sowing seeds of positive karma, then we'll have positive karma. If we're sowing negative, then we'll experience negative. And so apparently one of the worst things you can do is express anger. Anger is one of the really bad things for planting negative seeds, and I kind of took issue with that, just because of my own history and my need to get in touch with some anger and express some anger, rather than bottling it up and having it come up in other ways, like depression or illness or sickness or whatever. So and so I brought that up, and she wasn't having any of it. And it wasn't appropriate to sort of debate her in the class, so I just let it go. But I think now that this next class is about disturbing emotions, that I may get an opportunity to just get her to clarify that a little bit more for me, because tapping my anger was actually really helpful for me. So I don't know how I could have done it otherwise. Anyway, I guess we'll see. Maybe there's another approach that I'm not aware of yet.